Hi there. Welcome to Reddit Confessions. Today's story doesn't start with a love story, or a fairy tale wedding, or even a dramatic fight. It starts with laughter. Her laughter. And the moment it died. It was 9:42 p.m. on a Thursday. I remember the time because I kept checking my watch, hoping this party would end itself before I had to find the courage to leave it. I was standing by the snack table pretending to be fascinated by gluten-free crackers when it happened. She raised her wine glass, called for attention, and said, Okay. You guys want to hear something hilarious? Everyone went quiet. Eyes on her. Phones down. The spotlight hit her without a bulb. I should have walked out then. But I didn't. I stayed. Like always. She pointed at me. At first, I thought I married a man, she giggled. Turns out, I married a printer tech support hotline with anxiety. Laughter. I blinked. Seriously, she added. He once spent 2 hours trying to pair Bluetooth headphones with the toaster. More laughter. Someone choked on their rose. Another snapped a photo of her mid-pose like she was on stage at a comedy club. And me? I didn't laugh. I didn't protest. I didn't flinch. I just placed the cracker back on the plate, turned around, and walked out the front door. Not a single word. Not a glance back. And that's when it happened. The laughter stopped. Completely. Dead. Not because they were done laughing, but because the joke finally looked real. That was the exact moment she realized I wasn't playing along this time. I wasn't her character anymore. I was a man quietly disappearing. I walked 2 blocks in the cold before I realized I'd left my coat behind. Kept walking. My phone buzzed. I let it. The night air felt better than any apology text ever could. I ended up at a late-night diner. Ordered pancakes I didn't touch. Just stared at the syrup and wondered how long I'd let myself become the punchline in a joke I never found funny. It wasn't the first time she mocked me in front of others, but it was the first time I left. And it wouldn't be the last. Because what came after that moment wasn't silence. It was the beginning of her unraveling. I didn't go home that night. I couldn't. It wasn't about punishing her or trying to get some dramatic reaction. It was something deeper, something raw. I sat in that diner booth for almost 2 hours, watching people come and go, teenagers sharing fries, a man in a suit reading a spreadsheet at 11 p.m., a couple arguing in whispers about vacation plans. Normal people living normal lives. Meanwhile, I was sitting there wondering when exactly I became invisible to the one person who used to look at me like I mattered. I didn't answer her calls. Not that night. Not the next morning. She texted me once at 1:12 a.m. That just said, really? That was it. No apology. No, are you okay? Just a passive-aggressive ping, like I'd embarrassed her by walking out of her performance. I checked into a hotel around 3 a.m. Some off-brand chain with weak coffee and stronger regrets. The receptionist asked if I was traveling for work. I lied and said yes. It felt easier than saying, no, I'm hiding from my marriage because I finally saw the truth under the wine glass. When I finally turned my phone back on the next morning, there were 6 missed calls and 1 voicemail. I stared at the screen for a good 5 minutes before I pressed play. Her voice came through, calm, clipped, rehearsed. Hey Curtis, I don't know what last night was, but I think it was pretty childish. You could have at least told me you were leaving. Everyone was confused. You made it weird. That was it. I made it weird. Not the public ridicule. Not the humiliating punchline. Not the laughter aimed at me like a firing squad. No, my silence was the real crime. I didn't respond. Instead, I packed up and drove to my sister's place across town. She offered me coffee, gave me a blanket, and didn't ask questions. That's why I love her. She always knows when I'm not ready to speak. I slept for nearly 12 hours that night, and when I woke up, something had shifted. Not clarity, not anger, just fatigue. A kind that seeps into your bones and makes you feel like you've been carrying someone else's weight for years. I checked social media out of habit. That's when things started to twist. There were photos from the party. Dozens. And in one of them, someone had tagged me. Well, my name at least. I wasn't in the frame. But she was. Standing next to a man I'd never seen before. Hand on her hip. His hand, not where it should have been. The caption? Dynamic duo brought the real entertainment last night. I stared at it for so long my screen dimmed. I tapped her profile. Scrolled. Something in my chest tightened. This man, his name was Ethan, apparently, had shown up in 4 different photos in the last 2 months. Once at a charity auction. Once at a wine tasting. Once at a rooftop yoga class. And now this party. I had never been invited to any of those events. In fact, I didn't even know she went to a rooftop yoga class. I didn't message her. I didn't call her. I just kept scrolling, feeling the timeline of our marriage start to fracture under my fingertips. I knew better than to jump to conclusions. I've never been the jealous type. But it wasn't about jealousy. It was about a growing gut instinct I couldn't unfeel. Something wasn't right. And for the first time, I wasn't going to pretend everything was fine. Not for her. Not for anyone. What came next was the moment I stopped trying to be the good, quiet, understanding husband. Because the universe was about to hand me something I didn't ask for. A truth so humiliating, I nearly threw up when I saw it. I'll tell you what happened in part 3. And no, it doesn't go where you think it does. This story is just warming up. Stay with me. I didn't plan to confront her right away. In fact, part of me hoped I wouldn't have to. I still clung to that microscopic, foolish hope that there was a perfectly normal explanation. That maybe Ethan was just a co-worker with bad boundaries. Or maybe the party photos were just innocent coincidences. But in the pit of my stomach, I already knew the truth. I just hadn't caught up with it emotionally yet. That's what hurts the most, I think. Not the betrayal itself, but the slow, creeping realization that you've been the only one fighting for something that's already dead. The next morning, I finally got a call I didn't ignore, but it wasn't from her. It was from my neighbor, Daniel. We've never been more than casual nod-and-grill conversation neighbors, but his tone on the phone was weird. Careful. Hesitant. Hey, Curtis. I wasn't sure if I should call you, but I noticed your car's not been in the driveway. Everything okay? I lied at first. Told him I was working remotely somewhere quieter, which is ridiculous because I already work from home. He hesitated, then said, I only asked because, well, there's been a guy coming by the house a lot lately. Tall guy. Drives a black Audi. He was there again this morning, just a few minutes after Imogen left. My spine straightened like someone had pulled a string through my back. What do you mean after she left? He parked down the street, waited maybe 10 minutes, then walked around the side of your house. I saw him go through the back gate. I didn't answer. Look, I'm not trying to get involved in your business, man, Daniel added quickly. I just thought you'd want to know. I thanked him and hung up. Then I sat in silence for maybe 20 straight minutes, staring at nothing, my thoughts running like a broken record. Everything began to click into place. The snide jokes, the cold shoulder, the disappearing weekends, the parties I wasn't invited to, and now, a stranger entering my house through the back gate while I was gone. My hands were shaking when I opened our home security app. We had cameras. I installed them myself. But Imogen had asked me to turn off the notifications last month, saying they were just cluttering your phone. I never questioned it. I thought she just didn't want to be paranoid. I logged in, and I watched. Footage from 8:17 a.m. that morning. Imogen locking the front door, purse over her shoulder, hair perfectly styled. She got into her car, backed out, and drove away. 3 minutes later, a man I didn't recognize, tall, in business casual, carrying a paper coffee tray, came walking up the sidewalk, glancing around like he was checking the weather. He slipped through the side gate like he'd done it 100 times. He didn't knock. He didn't hesitate. He walked around back, toward the patio door. The feed didn't show the door itself, but I knew exactly what he was doing. He had a key, or she left it unlocked. Either way, it wasn't the first time. My stomach dropped. I fast-forwarded an hour. The camera near the driveway caught him leaving, this time alone. No Imogen. No coffee tray. Just him, phone in hand, whistling. I couldn't breathe. I wasn't even angry. Not yet. What I felt was something deeper. Something colder. Like the floor had fallen out from under me. And instead of hitting rock bottom, I was just stuck in freefall. The worst part? I still didn't want to believe it. I still wanted her to walk in, look me in the eyes, and say, it's not what it looks like. Even if it was. But I couldn't play dumb anymore. I needed confirmation. I needed something that would remove the last thread of denial I was clinging to like a lifeline. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her laptop. I know. It's not right. It's not honorable. But this isn't a story about honor anymore. This is a story about finding out how long you've been lied to while you smiled through it. She had a password, but not for the Notes app. There it was. A folder titled Declutter. Inside, screenshots, messages, photos, a calendar with coded entries I didn't fully understand. But one thing was clear. Ethan wasn't just a coworker. He was the punchline I never saw coming. The joke wasn't that I couldn't use Bluetooth. The joke was that I still believed I had a wife. And as I sat there, scrolling through texts that made my throat close up, reading inside jokes I didn't understand, and seeing smiley faces that were never meant for me, one thing settled in my mind like cement. She had been living two lives, and mine was the one she laughed at. I didn't explode. I didn't scream. I didn't smash her laptop or call her names. Maybe that makes me weak. Maybe it makes me delusional. But even after all I had seen, those smirking texts, those half-naked mirror selfies she sent to Ethan, that stupid calendar labeled with nonsense like E equals yoga and tea time hot beverage eyes. Even then, my first instinct wasn't revenge. It was heartbreak. A quiet, collapsing kind of heartbreak. The kind that makes you sit on the edge of your shared bed and whisper, "What did I do wrong?" Even though deep down you know this wasn't about you. I didn't know what to do. I was staying at my sister's place, pretending everything was fine, smiling through breakfast like I hadn't just watched the woman I built a life with schedule romantic getaways under the name of Pilates. But I couldn't bring myself to confront her. Not yet. Not until I was sure. I needed to see it with my own eyes. So I played along. I texted her that morning and said I needed a few days to clear my head. She responded with a thumbs-up emoji. No questions. No, where are you? No, come home. That silence said more than any argument ever could. But then, just 2 days later, she invited me to a dinner party. Yep, as if nothing had happened. Just like that, a message popped up. Hey, so random. Declan's throwing another rooftop night this weekend. Would love for you to come. Want to show everyone we're still the fun couple. Still the fun couple. I stared at that text like it was written in another language. What kind of person cheats behind your back, mocks you in front of strangers, then expects you to pose for Instagram stories 2 days later? But instead of ignoring it, I agreed. I had a plan. Not one fueled by rage or theatrics. Just truth. Cold, undeniable truth. A simple way to pull back the curtain and let her stand in the mess she made. So that Saturday night, I showed up. I wore the same clothes I'd worn the night she humiliated me, the one she once laughed at for being 2009, and I showed up 30 minutes early. I knew she wouldn't be there yet. Imogen was always fashionably late, always made her own entrance. But I wasn't interested in her entrance. I was interested in the guest list. Sure enough, Ethan arrived before her. Alone. Confident. Like he'd done this a dozen times. I watched him from across the rooftop as he air-kissed a few people and poured himself a drink like the place was his. I waited until he turned toward the balcony railing. Then I walked straight over, pulled out my phone, and quietly pressed record. Ethan, right? I said, as if I were introducing myself for the first time. He turned with a polite smile, eyebrows lifting. Yeah, and you are? I'm Imogen's husband. The color drained from his face like I'd opened a trapdoor under his shoes. I didn't yell. I didn't push him. I just held up the phone, showing him a few screenshots. Her texts. The calendar. A picture of him entering my home. I think you know why I'm here. He stammered. Said something about it not being what I thought. I didn't care. His words bounced off me like ping-pong balls in a hurricane. I wasn't there for him. I was there for the look on her face when she realized the game was over. And right on cue, Imogen arrived. She came through the elevator doors in a black dress I'd never seen before, laughing with a couple coworkers, holding a bottle of wine like she was walking into a magazine spread. Then she saw me. Then she saw Ethan. Then she saw the phone. That laugh. It died instantly. Her smile collapsed into something stiff and mechanical, and for the first time in years, she didn't look like the center of the room. She looked like a deer that wandered into traffic. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. I just looked her in the eyes, then slowly, without drama, without noise, I walked out. Same as before. Only this time, it wasn't silence I left behind. It was chaos. Voices rising. Someone whispering, "Is that her husband?" A wine glass breaking. Ethan calling her name. Imogen calling mine. But I didn't stop. I didn't turn around. I just kept walking, step after step, off that rooftop and down the hall, and into the elevator, where the doors closed so gently it felt like the universe was saying, finally. And as I stepped outside into the night, I realized something strange. I didn't feel broken. I felt free. Freedom, as it turns out, doesn't come with peace. Not at first. At least not for me. Because the moment I stepped off that rooftop, I thought it was over. I really did. I thought walking away would be the end of it. that I'd said everything I needed to say by saying absolutely nothing, that the silence I left her in would echo louder than any confrontation ever could. I was wrong. The chaos I walked away from followed me, not like thunder, but like smoke, creeping through every corner of my life. The very next morning, my phone exploded. Missed calls, unread messages, voicemails. From her friends, from people who had never even texted me before. They all suddenly had something to say now that the curtain had dropped. One message from Imogen, just read. What did you think that would prove? As if my quiet exit had been some elaborate stunt. As if she wasn't the one who paraded our marriage like a punchline in front of people who barely knew me. Another message, from someone named Bree, one of her closest friends, was more brutal. You embarrassed her. Everyone was watching. You looked insane. I didn't respond to any of them. But I read every single word. Not because I cared what they thought, but because part of me still wanted to see if anyone would admit what she did was wrong. No one did. Not even her. Instead, she sent one more message that finally broke the silence between us. It simply said, "Come home. We need to talk." I should have deleted it. I should have ignored it. But I didn't. I went. Not because I wanted to save the marriage. That ship had been slowly sinking for years. I just hadn't realized how far underwater I already was. I went because I needed to hear her say it. I needed her to look me in the eye and finally admit what I had already seen with my own eyes. When I walked into our house, it felt unfamiliar, like stepping into a stage set I used to live in. Nothing was technically out of place, but everything felt off. Her shoes were by the door. Her perfume lingered in the hallway. But it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a museum exhibit titled, "What Love Used to Look Like." She was sitting on the couch, hair curled, casual makeup, dressed like she hadn't just shattered everything between us. "Curtis," she started, "what you did at the party was..." I held up a hand. I didn't want to lecture. I saw the messages, Imogen. I saw the calendar. I saw him walk into this house after you left. Do not insult me by pretending you don't know what this is about. She opened her mouth, closed it, then looked away like a child caught stealing. "It wasn't serious," she finally said. Those 3 words were like glass in my chest. Not "I'm sorry." Not "it was a mistake." Just "it wasn't serious." I sat down slowly, trying to steady my breathing. Do you understand how long I sat in this house thinking the problem was me? How long I believed I was the reason we stopped being close? The reason you stopped laughing at my jokes, stopped coming to bed, stopped asking about my day? I thought I was the failure. "You were distant too," she said defensively, arms crossed. "You're always in your own head. You never fought for us." "No, Imogen. I never fought you. There's a difference." The room went quiet. She looked down, then reached for something beside her. It was a manila envelope. She handed it to me without a word. Inside, divorce papers, already filled out. Her signature was there in ink. All it needed was mine. "I just thought this might be cleaner," she muttered. "Less painful." I stared at the paper, then at her. "You planned this before the party, didn't you?" She didn't answer, but the silence was answer enough. I stood up, took the envelope, and said the only thing that felt honest anymore. "You know what's funny, Imogen? You spent so much time making me the joke. But this entire time, you were the punchline." I left. Again. Only this time, I wasn't just walking out of a party. I was walking out of a marriage. I wish I could tell you that after I walked out with the divorce papers in hand, it ended cleanly. That I drove away from our house, signed the documents in a moment of clarity, and disappeared into some poetic new beginning where everything hurt less and made more sense. But I've never been that kind of guy. I don't operate on clean breaks and powerful exits. I'm the kind of guy who still checks the weather app 3 times before leaving the house. The kind of guy who apologizes to the vacuum for bumping into it. I carry things, even when I shouldn't. So no, it didn't end there. What happened next was messier, more public, and somehow even more humiliating than being turned into a joke at her friend's rooftop party. I didn't sign the papers immediately. I needed time, not because I wanted her back, but because something inside me still hadn't caught up. Emotionally, I was lagging behind the facts. She'd betrayed me, mocked me, and handed me a ready-to-file divorce packet like it was a flyer for a gym membership. But some part of me still couldn't believe it had happened. A few days passed. I kept my distance. No texts. No calls. I stayed at my sister's, picked up extra freelance gigs, started keeping busy just to avoid slipping into that dangerous spiral of wondering what if. Then it happened. It was a Thursday afternoon. I was sitting in a quiet coffee shop, trying to work on a spreadsheet I didn't care about, when my phone started vibrating. Not buzzing. Exploding. Call after call. Unknown numbers. Texts from coworkers. Even my sister called and left a rushed voicemail that just said, "Curtis, you need to see this right now." I opened my social media and felt the bottom drop out of my stomach. Imogen had posted a video. It wasn't private. It wasn't subtle. It was a 6-minute, carefully edited, over-filtered monologue titled, "When Love Turns Cold, My Side of the Story." My face was in the thumbnail, and within minutes, it had over 2,000 views. I pressed play with trembling hands. The video began with soft music, a slow zoom in on her sitting in what used to be our living room. She was dressed in neutral tones, eyes watery, voice perfectly cracked. "I never imagined I'd be sharing this publicly," she said, staring straight into the camera. "But I've been misrepresented, and I deserve to tell my truth." Misrepresented? She went on to spin a version of our marriage I didn't recognize. She said I'd emotionally checked out years ago, that I was distant, cold, uninvolved. She painted herself as a wife desperate for connection, for validation, for warmth that I refused to give. She admitted to brief moments of emotional closeness with someone else, but insisted it was never physical. She said I stormed out of a party and humiliated her in front of everyone, and that the relationship was too far gone to save. She even quoted some therapist I'd never met. By the end of the video, I was shaking, not just from anger, but from sheer disbelief. She had prepped this, filmed it, edited it, released it, and while I was hiding from her betrayal in a hotel room, she was building a public image of herself as a misunderstood, heartbroken wife left behind by an emotionally unavailable husband. And it worked. The comments were filled with strangers praising her bravery. "You're so strong. Wow, this was me last year. Stay brave, girl. Sending you love. He didn't deserve you." Each one stabbed a little deeper. No one knew the truth. No one saw the messages I saw. The man in our house. The calendar. The jokes. The quiet way she dismantled me day by day. I had proof, but she had the narrative. And in today's world, narrative wins. I sat there in that coffee shop for over an hour, just reading, rereading, breathing through the panic that was rising in my chest. I wasn't a dramatic man. I didn't like scenes. I didn't do rage. But this was something else. This wasn't just betrayal. This was performance. And the worst part? People were clapping. That night, I didn't sleep. I paced. I rehearsed. I wrote out long responses in my notes app that I never posted. I nearly made a video of my own, but I stopped myself. Because I realized something important. She wanted a war. She wanted chaos. She wanted me to fight back so she could spin it again. So instead, I chose something better. Something she'd never see coming. I didn't eat the next day. I barely drank water. I just sat on my sister's back porch, staring at a lawn that didn't belong to me anymore, trying to figure out when my life had gone from ordinary to whatever this was. I had gone from being an overlooked husband to being a public villain in the story she constructed, starring herself as the victim. I was scrolling through her video again, reading the comments like they were the final nails in the coffin of our marriage. "She's so well-spoken. You did what you had to do, girl. You're inspiring." It felt surreal. These strangers didn't know the late nights I spent waiting for her to come home without explanation. They didn't know she left our anniversary dinner early because Ethan had an emergency with his dog. They didn't know I once found her watching a video on her phone, smiling, and when I asked what it was, she minimized it and said, "Just a work thing." That work thing turned out to be a video of her and Ethan on a wine tour. So no, I wasn't going to play defense anymore. I wasn't going to tell my side, with matching lighting and a soft piano soundtrack. I decided the best way to show the truth was to let it reveal itself. I contacted a friend of mine, Dina, who works in HR and knows her way around corporate policy. I told her everything. I showed her the screenshots, not just of the affair, but of what Imogen had been doing on company time. The Pilates sessions that were actually hotel stays. The emails from her work account setting up brunches with Ethan during team hours. Photos of the two of them together at a supposedly mandatory off-site conference. Dina raised her eyebrows. "This isn't just an affair," she said. "This is corporate fraud." I didn't respond. I didn't need to. She started putting things in motion. 1 week later, Imogen had no idea what was coming when she strutted into her office with that confident posture she reserved for when she felt invincible. Her smile dropped halfway through the day when two people from HR and one from legal asked her to step into a conference room. I wasn't there, but I got the message from Dina that simply read, "She's been placed on administrative leave. Investigation underway." She cried. No gloating, no celebration, just a deep, tired breath from me. Not because she lost something, but because the mask she wore for everyone else finally cracked. But that wasn't even the moment that mattered most. The real moment came 2 days later. My niece was having a birthday party at a local park. I was invited. So was Imogen's cousin, whose kids went to school with mine. A lot of people from our shared past showed up. I wasn't planning on staying long. I figured I'd give a gift, have a slice of cake, and vanish quietly. But then Imogen showed up. I almost laughed when I saw her. No makeup, hair tied back, oversized sweatshirt. For the first time, she looked real. Not manufactured, not filtered, just real. And the minute she spotted me, she made a beeline straight through the balloons and folding chairs. "I need to talk to you." I kept my voice calm. "Now's not the time." "No, you don't get to do this," she hissed under her breath. "You humiliated me." I tilted my head. "Publicly? On the internet?" She blinked, realized the hypocrisy mid-sentence. "You reported me to my job, Curtis." "Seriously?" "No," I said, dead serious. "I gave the truth to someone who asked for it. That's all." She looked around, aware that a few heads had turned. Her face twitched like she wanted to cry, scream, or maybe both. I was angry. "I made that video because I thought you'd never speak up for yourself," she said. "I thought you'd just disappear and make me the bad guy again." I stared at her. "You were the bad guy, Imogen. You didn't need me to make you look like one." And then it happened. She broke. Right there in front of everyone, she started sobbing. Loudly. The kind of crying that doesn't come from pain, but from being caught. She dropped to the picnic bench behind her, shaking, muttering, "I ruined everything. I ruined everything." People watched. Kids got quiet. Parents awkwardly shifted away. I didn't comfort her. Not this time. I just walked over to the table, placed the divorce papers down, and said quietly, "Sign them. We're done." Then I turned and walked away again, just like I had at that rooftop party. But this time, the silence wasn't awkward. It was earned. It was justice. I never thought the quietest decisions would lead to the loudest turning points in my life. I always assumed endings came with shouting, shattered plates, dramatic exits. But mine came with silence. A quiet walk out of a party. A quiet goodbye at a park. A quiet signature on a divorce paper that didn't feel like failure, but finally, freedom. Imogen signed the papers the very next day. No lawyers. No counterdemands. No long goodbye letters. Just a text that said, "Done. Hope you find what you're looking for." Funny thing is, I wasn't looking for anything anymore. After it was finalized, I took a solo trip. Nothing fancy. I didn't fly off to Greece or hike through Iceland. I just rented a tiny cabin by a lake 2 hours out of town. No reception. No social media. Just the smell of pine, an old rocking chair, and a stack of paperbacks I hadn't touched in years. And for the first time in so long, I remembered what it felt like to be a person again. Not a punchline. Not a side character in someone else's curated narrative. Just Curtis. Quiet, awkward, sensitive Curtis. And I like that guy. Life didn't magically become perfect. I didn't suddenly find a new love, or become a millionaire, or write a best-selling book based on this disaster. But I did something that mattered more. I rebuilt myself, piece by fragile piece, without pretending to be stronger than I was. And here's the real twist, the part no one saw coming. About 6 months after the divorce, I got an unexpected letter in the mail. Handwritten. From Imogen. It wasn't bitter. It wasn't manipulative. It wasn't trying to win me back. It was honest. She wrote, "You were never the joke. I just didn't know how to be loved by someone who didn't need to be impressed. I made everything a performance. You were the one person who saw behind the curtain, and I hated that. I hurt you because I couldn't handle being known. I'm sorry." And for the first time, I believed her. I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because there was nothing else left to say. I had already said goodbye, first with my feet, then with my heart. These days, I live in a small apartment closer to the edge of town. Still working remote. Still building model trains. Still triple-checking if I locked the door. But now, when I do, I smile to myself. Because I'm still me. Only this time. I like that more than I ever have. Thanks for sticking through this story with me. If you've ever felt like someone made you feel small, like you were the joke in your own life, just remember, walking away quietly doesn't mean you lost. Sometimes, it's the strongest thing you'll ever do. Let me know in the comments. What moment in this story shocked you the most? Or have you ever walked away from someone who kept making you feel like less? I'd love to hear your experiences. And if you enjoyed this journey, don't forget, you're on Reddit Confessions. We share real, raw, human stories like this every week. So stick around. There's always more where this came from.